Oh,
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Scalawags, episode N plus 1, where we don't know how to
28.
count or rig's pulse audio, but we sure know how to find free music online.
Well, one piece of free music.
One piece of free music online. Don't ask us to find any more. I'm Daniel Spiewak. I have a cat. Dick Wall and Josh Surratt are with me. This is sort of a Scalawags Classic Edition podcast because our other and much more interesting hosts are AWOL today.
Yes, Heather was, I think, in, but hasn't yet to show up online. Maybe, my best theory is she was out hitting the sauce last night and she had too much. That's my. I'd like to think
That
that.
sounds like a very Heather thing to do. Like,
Yeah.
She strikes me as the go out and party hard, come into work blurry-eyed at 11:30.
Just sort of
That's so her.
roll in. Somebody shoot me.
Oh my gosh.
that is exactly not how I. Well, anyway. One thing I'd like. She was actually telling me she's applying for some kind of a position where she needed to fill out like a 20-page entry application. Something that's more academic than like I'm used to. So like, I just like told her, you know, if you have a 20-page application to apply, it's not even worth like working there. I mean, seriously, 20 pages of crap you have to fill out. But it's like your you know, research history and all this kind of crap. And
Yeah.
Actually, you know what it is they know that particular job has an incredibly high tedium rating, and so they want to make sure that you
Your audition.
will get through the tedium in your application, because that's basically going to be the rest of it. So yeah.
see, I would have thought that having to write a whole bunch of research papers and that sort of thing, like where other people's names go above yours, would already have like set the tone for what to expect. But
No, she's full in on it, and that's great. I think it's good that I think one of the hardest things in life is to actually figure out what you want to do, and once you've figured it out, it's actually a lot easier usually to go and do it. And so that's I'm really pleased. I chat with Heather quite a lot during the day, and she seems really happy about this decision. So, which is why she went out and got so drunk last night and can't join us. That's
So wait, I mean, not to step on her thunder, but I mean, is she leaving EPFL then? Or is it just a different position at the university?
well, her time it's more like I think she's done with EPFL. Like she was there for postdoc or doctorate, and I think she's going to get that soon. So this is like the next phase. Like Philip Haller just took a position in Sweden. Where I still work with him on Scala stuff, but he's now like a professor.
he's not the Swedish minister for Scala?
They have started.
That would be pretty awesome.
There are enough people in Sweden writing Scala that I think it could work out.
I was at JFocus like a month ago.
Yeah.
And it was the Scala community there is great.
Yeah.
There was a ton of interest. I gave a talk on functional programming that had like 520 people at it. Like there's a ton of people crammed in there.
So wait, I don't believe you gave a talk on functional programming. That part has to be a lie. You would never talk about functional programming.
No, clearly I'm not qualified to speak about functions.
I think you can speak about cater functions and category theory.
Well, we've got a story about that coming up, but I suspect that particular story is going to be the major meat of the episode. So I was going to get a couple of things cleared before we get there.
We should tell people what this episode is. This is the news episode. We're doing another news episode. We're about a month behind on news.
Where we waffle about.
If you want to keep up with current events, this is your source.
This is the February news episode in March.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, we thought that there was 30 days in February, so this is really February 30th.
Yep.
Anyway.
Sorry, I had to turn off my phone because it was yelling at me, so it's now been suitably chastised. Yeah, well, no, people, I learned this on the Java Posse. People don't listen to us for up-to-the-date news. They want to hear our cutting and insightful analysis and our jolly japing. That's what it's all about, you see.
And they watch the YouTube
Japing.
video. They watch the YouTube video to see what we wear and whether or not we've combed our hair, right?
Jocularity was the word I was looking
style
for.
trendsetters.
Jocularity is pretty good. All right.
Jocularity,
so,
yes.
I just gotta say, Daniel's got this evil petting the cat theme going on here, where all we see is a giant cat head in a hand every once in a while.
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Oh
So with that said, would the cat like to start our first news item here, or do you? It looks like you don't even have the news items open, Daniel. What? No, we're so out of sorts here.
Oh my gosh! All right, so this is the part where I load Google Drive and remember how hard it is to find shared documents.
So we'll have someone. You can take the third news item. How about that? All right, Dick, you wanna kick us off?
Sure. Yeah. So this is just a reminder about Scala Days, which is coming up in March. There's also one in June, Amsterdam, and I don't know whether we mentioned this or not, but I think it's sort of semi-official now that we're going to actually be doing some of the MCing. Did you guys know about this, or is this a surprise to you?
This is a surprise to me.
Okay, well you're volunteered, mate.
Oh.
If it's a surprise to you, you can blame myself and Dick. So
we said that sounds like a great idea. Everybody will love to do that.
Yeah. So what happened was we ended up emceeing Scala Days in Berlin. So Seth and Dick and I, and it was really fun. So
I hope it was fun for everybody. It was fun for us.
It was, yeah. I hope everyone enjoyed it. So we're gonna do it again, but we sort of I think someone asked Dick and I together. We're like, yeah, everyone will be in for it. So you're now doing it, Daniel.
Okay. Apparently that's a thing.
2 out of 5 is now a majority vote.
Yeah,
so,
you have to prepare about 30 minutes of hilarious material that is unrelated to programming, because we're gonna do a little stand up and then we're gonna kick it off. Yeah.
Okay. That should be completely doable.
And a little tail end on that as well. I'm going to be originally I think it was Bill was going to be doing the Play with Scala train. There's a whole bunch of training going on around Scala Days, but Bill decided he had some other stuff to do, so I will actually be covering the Play with Scala training course. So
nice.
Yeah, if you want to learn Play and you may not know about the course, then come hang out. All right.
I also want to throw out I'm giving a talk on whirlwind tour of the Scala ecosystem. So if you're already in the Scala ecosystem and listening to this podcast, you probably shouldn't come to that one because it's just going to be like everything in the ecosystem very quickly. Like here's what you should pay attention to if you're new to Scala. But the way I'm giving the talk, I hope will be impressive.
Excellent. Oh, I'm going to be there now.
I've been implementing this for every night. I'm up all night working on this thing. But if it's not impressive, I'm just gonna cry, and you'll know that I completely failed on my implementation. But anyway, so some good things coming. But just watch the video if you're already in the ecosystem, because hopefully it'll be exciting.
Excellent.
Anyway.
All right. Next up, I think.
Next up, Flatmap Oslo is coming up. I've actually never. This is one of the ones that I always wanted to go to, but never got to.
It's really, really good. I went to it 2 years ago. I came within a skosh of doing it this year. I've just got so much stuff going on in spring. I couldn't swing it, but it's a really, really well done conference. Oslo is a beautiful city if you've never been, and they generally line up very, very, very good talks. Just really, really just enjoyable speakers.
So talking about the talks or looking at the talks that they sent the email in, it seems like there's quite a bit of interest in Idris taking place there. There's Clojure, but I don't see any Scala, so I think the Scala community needs to step up its game a bit, and the call for speakers is still open, so let's get some cool Scala stuff in there.
And so I've seen people composing music in Clojure. I've seen people composing music in Nemerly. We need someone composing music in Scala, but our limiting factor right now is Java X.sound, I think.
Yeah,
it certainly is.
Well, you'd think that would be the limiting factor for Clojure too.
Well, they use Super Collider, I think, is the project there, isn't it?
And there is a Scala Collider, so someone please.
Yeah.
I want to talk on music in Scala. where I can then go home and pretend like I know how to make music in Scala. Anyway. The talk run-ups looks really good. I hear really good things about Flat Map Oslo. I mean, the whole Flat Map conference series is pretty good. Am I thinking there is more than one Flat Map? Is that right?
No, I think there's only one.
Maybe I'm thinking of Lambda Jam is the one that goes multiple cities.
Lambda Jam is in multiple cities. I think Flat Map should be in multiple cities, right? Because more than one city is clearly monadic.
I was just gonna make a variation of that joke, which is there used to be several, but they all got flat mapped together. And anyway,
I think your joke is better than mine. But I think it would be really cool to have it in other cities, and I really like this trend that we're seeing of a lot of these really small sort of kind of grassroots community Scala conferences that we're seeing. I mean, back in the day, like Scala Days was basically the only one, and then any Scala sprung up, and now we've got things like Pacific Northwest Scala, Pwn Scala, I can't remember what they call themselves, and Scala by the Bay, and we've got Lambda Conf in Boulder, and the Flat Map, and it's really, I don't know, it's really exciting, and I think some of these conferences have a really good take on things, and it's a lot of fun to go to them.
Shane, so bit of a slight tangent here, but I'm actually doing a similar thing. I don't think we're quite ready to reveal the name yet, but I'm doing a similar thing after the Java Posse. After the Java Posse ended, we were left with this question of what to do with the Java Posse Roundup, because everybody seemed to like that. It's just an unconference that took place, but everybody really liked it and wanted to sort of see what to do with it. And we're like, well, I don't know. But anyway, in the end, I got talking to Stefan Janssen, and we decided to go with a kind of DevOps branding for these and to start opening them up. And I'm actually on the hook for documenting some stuff on how to run an unconference, which is pretty easy, by the way. But the whole idea is to sort of franchise this out under DevOps now and get a bunch of different unconferences around the world as well, which will be fun. So
yeah, that's awesome. The good news is there should be a conference near you. If you can't travel, there should be one that's relatively close to your location now.
Yeah.
You can go and meet people with similar-minded attitudes and
within bicycle distance, even.
Possibly. It depends.
Yeah, well, John DeGoes was teasing me about that because I was like, I couldn't decide whether or not I wanted to go to LambdaConf, and I was like, I mean, it's so far away and so annoying. And he's like, you bike down a hill and then up another hill, and you're right there. The travel penalty is, do you want to wake up in the morning and bike for 5 minutes?
It's so far away. Excellent.
Oh, but no, that'll be fun too. I think that's going to be an enjoyable conference.
When does that one actually happen? I remember looking at the speaker.
Are the dates up there?
I don't know. Their conference has like Fire and other distracting things, and like the website, and I don't know. I can't remember. May 22nd and 24th.
Oh, there we go.
So that's coming up soon too. Nice.
Yep.
Since we might not even do a March news episode, it might not make it until May even. We should
our next news episode in June sometime.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No. As soon as these things come in, I'm like, that needs to go on the news docket right now, because who knows when we're going to get together next and talk about this stuff.
Yeah. So what's up with ScalaCourses.com?
I'm just going to do a very, very quick shameless plug. Actually, I am ashamed of this plug, but it's a plug. We've got our Scala training courses online now, Escalate. And strangely enough, we're doing it with parlays with Stefan again. And unbelievably, ScalaCourses.com wasn't taken, so we grabbed that URL and used it. One of the good URLs was still left, so there you go. Wow. Anyway, ScalaCourses.com if you want Scala training, and I'm in the middle of recording the advanced one now, which is really fun. I love doing the advanced material. We don't get to do it that often because obviously most people want what we call the applied course, but it's always fun to do the advanced because you get into all the type theory and monads and all that kind of stuff, and a whole bunch of best practices and idioms and just fun stuff like that. So, all right.
You know what else is not taken, but I think will be a longer discussion?
What's that?
Scalacats.com.
Oh no.
We're almost there. We're almost to Scala Cats.
All right, we'll get there. We'll get there. And the next news item, I think, is a Dick news item too, because you've done a ton of work on this.
Yeah, and it's still happening. I've got a couple of bigger pull requests in for review right now. I was sort of hoping that they'd be commented on by now, so I'm going to go and crack the whip on everybody later. But yeah, the whole basically the thing you need to know if you're interested in contributing to Scala is your jumping off point. Is now, it probably always was, but it's been revamped, is scalalang.org, scala-lang.org/contribute. And there's going to be tools and libraries coming, and in fact, what I've got out there, hanging out there right now, is the idea of, and this may be news to you guys, but the idea of slips, which is like SIPs, but for library improvements. And everybody seems to think that slips is a pretty good name so far. I was using it as sort of a working title, but everybody's like, oh yeah, that's good. So it's the Scala library improvement process. And
is there a slipstream where I can watch changes that are happening?
It is a bit more slip. Well, there will be. That's actually that's a really good name for it.
With sort of a floating image of Kevin Sorbo, like, in the background.
Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah, we're going to do that. Now, I was going to make the slipstream joke that these should be a little bit faster. In fact, one of the aims that I really want to get on this is libraries are less controversial than language changes. There's still, you want to be careful about what you include in libraries, but it's not like you have to worry about the entire feature matrix of what this is going to do to type inference in the language and things like that. So we really want to try and make this a process that moves and keeps moving. It has to have a public review period, obviously, but the aim is to keep that pretty short. And really, if people are interested, then it's up to them to get in there in a week or two of these kind of review windows and say what they think. Because it feels like the whole process has been a bit lethargic up until this point. So we really want to, stick adrenaline directly into its heart and push the plunger down. So
one thing I want to say, and this is surprising to me, is that technology really does change everything in the dynamics of interpersonal relationships. For example, Gitter. I don't know if you guys have used Gitter. I just want to throw this out as a news item that we sort of mentioned, but not really. But Gitter is public. GITTER.IM. It's a GitHub thing. It's not much different than other types of chatting programs. The difference is it's automatically included on your GitHub account. You can create chat channels around GitHub repositories, and it has single-handedly caused a super renewed interest in SBT contributions. Just by nature of people talking to us in a channel, we have this mailing list to talk about development, and then all questions we want on Stack Overflow. Well, what happens is everyone uses the development mailing list to ask questions that then don't get Google indexed well, and Stack Overflow has all these questions that are unanswered. And now that we have Gitter, we're doing a lot of actual development discussions on Gitter. It's awesome. It's a good.
It really. So I mean, it's funny because chat is hardly something that's new, right? I mean, IRC has been around forever, but it's just something about the way that Gitter is tied to GitHub and the way that it's even just perceived as being kind of part of the GitHub ecosystem. Yeah. And it's very easy to spin it up in your browser. Excuse me. All of that, it just the barrier of entry seems lower somehow, even if it's about the same as IRC. And people are just enthused about getting into it and having a real-time chat channel for users and developers. People sitting in there talking about how to improve stuff, talking about how to use stuff. It's really what people realize with Git and GitHub, right? If you can lower the process barriers associated with your community, then productivity goes up, and people using your project goes up because it's really about the people involved. It's really about the community involved.
I also think there's a what do I want to call it? A surface tension, friction, right? So the coefficient of friction for sending an email is a bit higher than the coefficient of friction for sending a chat message. So people are more willing to communicate on there than they would via email. With email, you feel like you have to think through everything you say, and it's really easy to take offense on email. Versus in chat, people will still take offense, but you can deal with it quicker.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, you have a response. You have the ability to respond and defuse situations. When you I actually kind of I'm going to keep this short, but this is one of my favorite subjects. Is there's been all these studies that as much as, and I'm not sure I believe it goes as high as this, but as much as 85% of communication is nonverbal. It's not the words. It's everything else around the words. How you read the situation, voice, intonation. Everything else, even emoticons. And when you write an email, you're basically throwing away as much as 85% of your message, which then gets filled in by somebody else. Now, if that person's having a bad day, they fill it in totally negative, and then they read something completely different from what you wrote. And it's having that ability to sort of just talk back and forth, and it reminds people that they're actually talking to a human being, not just sending some email that they're going to fire off in an angry moment and then forget. And it really is huge improvement on kind of that level of communication. So I love it. I think that everything GitHub's doing right now is just amazing. They really have nailed the kind of developer mindset and the community. And Gitter is great. We have a Scalawags channel, Scalawags/Scalawags.
We even have people posting news items right now on Scalawags.
I haven't checked it since we started, but
we should totally.
I'll throw them in later. The only thing I want to say related, I think this is related to Gitter, but I'm not sure. But Paul Phillips says that loose ships sink slips.
Loose ships sink slips. I like it.
Which that's not related to Gitter. So that's related to contributing and the slip. So just remember that, loose ships and slips.
I like it. I haven't quite figured out what he's trying to say there, but it's a great tongue twister.
It's from Slipstream and the Scala language improvement process. Loose ships sink slips, man.
I'm trying to figure out what a loose ship is, though.
I don't know, like when the Greeks used to put fire on their ships and send them down on the Persians or something. I don't know. Is that a loose ship?
I don't know. I'll try and puzzle that one out later.
It's when someone cuts the what do you call it? What's the rope that you use to anchor it to the dock? That has a name, right?
The mooring?
Yeah, the mooring cable. There you go. Someone cut the mooring.
Got it.
Man.
Anyway, yes, Gitter. Love Gitter.
Gitter is great. I really wish they would improve the client, though, in various ways. Like the keyboard shortcuts are absolutely wretched. Like really, 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 really wretched.
Yeah, well, I one of the things I've been trying to get working with it, and I think it's just early days for it, is I've been trying to get. I have a kind of universal IM client, and supposedly there's an IRC gateway, but I haven't been able to get it to connect. And from what people are saying, it's certificate issues, and my client is not sophisticated enough to sort of let me manage the certificate. So it's just a bad certificate. It won't connect. And I'm like, yeah, I can get it working in like BitchX and some of the other ones, XIRC, but I'm like, well, that doesn't do me any favors. I want to get them all in one place. Now I have like 5 different IM clients open all the time. I've got my Slack, I've got my FlowDoc, I've got my, and I'm like, damn it, people.
So I gave up on trying to unify all my IM clients quite a while ago, and my solution to this, actually there's a serious productivity solution hack here. My solution to this is basically to rather than put all my chat into a single source, so I can just alt tab into that and then move between panes in that source, I just lowered my friction in moving between arbitrary applications. So one of the things with moving between arbitrary applications is Command Tab is really blunt if you have like 5 or 6 different things that you want to move between on a regular basis, right? Because you have to like count and you have to remember where in the stack you are, and like it's really annoying. But if you're using something like Alfred or Quicksilver to just like type the name of the application you want to jump to, and it's not even a modal thing in your brain anymore. You're just like, go to this application, whether it's open or not. Just take me to it.
I thought you were going to go in a slightly different direction, which is the one I did, which is now I have 4 workspaces, and my top right workspace is the chat client workspace. It has about 5 different panes all in the same place, so I just go to that one, and they're all kind of there updating. So
I just limit what chat I read at what time.
Yeah.
So
well,
I leave Gitter open almost all the time now because a lot of my useful conversation goes on there. Internal to TypeSafe, we have an internal tool where my team is on, so I leave that one open during working hours, and then later on I check Twitter and that sort of thing.
Oh, Paul, by the way, just to give some what do you call it? Mental block on the name. Some background, some context. That's the one.
Yeah.
He says loose ships are poorly managed software shipping. That makes sense now. That dooms slips, apparently. So, excellent. So, yeah, that segues nicely, I think.
Shipping software, gotcha.
Yeah.
A loose ship, yeah.
Now, I think that the Gitter discussion segues nicely into NonCats, which is one of the Gitter channels that I actually read religiously for about a week, and then I was like, damn, there's so much traffic on this. It's really taken off. And so now I'm in lurk mode on there, and I just try and I do the whole Watchmen Ozymandias thing, where I just sort of try and gauge once a day what the kind of feel is of the thing. And I'm like, oh, everybody's happy. That's good. And I might read a couple of things in there, but there's so much traffic on there.
Did we already announce NonCats? I think we did in the previous episode.
I can't remember if we did or not, but I don't think we talked about it extensively, and I think it's a good time to kind of dive in. I figured that would be the major discussion of this one. That and the switch from JIRA to GitHub issues is the other one, of course, which is probably get to in a little bit. Okay.
So yeah, let's talk a little bit about NonCats, which it's not just NonCats that matter. There's is it non-algebra? Is it the other one? There's like I think 3 or 4 libraries here, right?
Yeah, that's near algebra.
Simulacrum, Machinist, Scala Check, Discipline, Kind Projector, Algebra. Right. Yeah.
Well, yeah, so some of those projects are not necessarily specific to cats, right? But algebra most definitely is, right? So if you're thinking,
I don't know if I would say so. Basically, they're trying to make a corpus of small modular libraries as opposed to one giant FP library, right?
Yes.
Okay, but anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just saying. So, I mean, maybe this requires a little bit more intro, but if you're thinking about things in terms of one giant FP library like ScalaZ, then the list of projects that they have, quote, working with cats, right, on their main page, is not necessarily the direct analog, right? Because some of these projects are used with other things, and they're not necessarily directly part of cats.
Right, or they're not specific to cats, they're just generic libraries. But essentially, what this is it's kind of like a fork of ScalaZ. Kind of, because it's not 100% the same. So cats is specifically category theory APIs for Scala. Just the category theory aspect. The algebra aspect is in a project called Algebra. Surprise! What a great name. But anyway, so Cats was not a troll on the Scala community like I had hoped that it would just be a giant meme. No, it's actually category theory. It's really useful. So it looks. I mean, the people behind it are doing a great job. They're trying to. It's the guys responsible for like Twitter, Algebird, and then Eric Oshheim and what's his Spire, the super fast.
Spire. That was the one I was. Yeah, going to talk about. Spire actually still holds the prize for like the most activity on there from the looks of things. Lots and lots of interest in Spire. But
Spire is fantastic. Like I've said it a lot, but if you're using numbers in Scala and you're not using Spire, you're probably not actually using numbers. You're using something else, you know not what. Like you're doing it wrong, honestly. Spire fixes as many of the problems as can be fixed, and it does it in a really elegant and fast way.
Yeah.
Yeah, Spire is one of the most impressive libraries in the Scala ecosystem, just from what they've managed to accomplish and the elegance they
Yeah.
achieved with it. So that said, since these two guys are getting together, like these two universes are getting together on Cats, it looks pretty cool. But Eric and I had a talk at Any Scala where we talked about basically that there's this thing in the Scala ecosystem where a whole bunch of libraries want to be zero dependency. Like, this is all you need. The library is on its own. We just rely on the standard library. And part of this is like recourse from binary compatibility issues. And yes, the binary compatibility issues still exist, but I think what I'm really happy seeing here is this push to have small libraries that you shouldn't be afraid of including or depending on. Small, cohesive, well-designed, and hopefully unbreaking because they're small enough that they can encapsulate an abstraction well.
Yeah, it's actually this is I think something we talk about this when we do the advanced Scala stuff, but actually thinking about the division between modules and the APIs between modules, what your public surface area is for this stuff, is something that doesn't happen enough in Scala libraries, in my opinion. It's a very hard thing. Josh Block has some great talks on this. You really want to cut that API down to the smallest it can be. You want the minimum functionality that you can get in a self-contained unit, and you want modules that plug together nicely. And we haven't been doing a very good job of this in the Scala core libraries either. They're a bit of a big behemoth, and it would be nice to split those up, which is the way it's going, is to modularize those more and pull them out. You can see that with like parser combinators getting moved out into their own library and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely very exciting stuff. I'm excited about it because one of the things I really like from Scala Z as well is the task. The task, which is sort of kind of based. They're sort of like a super future on steroids with all sorts of recovery options and things like that. And it's got me really interested to see if I had, in this mythical universe where I have all the time that I could want and no mortgage to pay, I'd really like to get into sort of seeing if I can recreate task on NonCats, or as a library on NonCats. But
well, so there is interesting on that front specifically. Scala Z Stream is actually looking into pulling task out of Scala Z and into Scala Z Stream. Like it might actually just remain in Scala Z. It's unclear, but because Scala Z Stream has a lot of very specific like interrupt and scheduling semantics that we kind of need to have control over. And right now we don't have as much control over it as we would like because it's inside of Scala Z. There's some bugs and some things that we'd like to fix that are harder to fix because we have to make sure that we don't break semantics and things like that. It would be nice if we just knew that it was like in Scala Z Stream, we had control over our primitives and we could just like do what we wanted to. So that would actually be very interesting.
Yes, that would. One of the reasons and traditionally it got better with Scala Z7, but one of the traditional things that you have to be really careful of with Scala Z, and I found this a lot. I'm not very good at remembering stuff. Like I have to go and look up, in particular, the whole wherever these implicits, the packages that these implicits come from in Scala Z was a constant drag. I'm like, where the hell is this one? And if you import the whole of Scala Z, pretty much breaks IntelliJ right there. It takes so long for IntelliJ to actually figure out what's going on that you can't do that. So you end up poking around and you're like, where's that set of implicits that make this work and all that sort of thing. And so yeah, getting these, actually having these modules or modularized better, and it is through task I primarily use through Scala Z Stream, but also for the what was it called? The monadic couch library, Stoop. We used a lot of task in Stoop, and it's really good. It's a very, very tight, very tight implementation of collecting together like side effecting work that you want to happen asynchronously and all that good stuff. So very nice. Anyway, that's NonCats. I kind of got off topic there, but
I think the exciting news is there's a whole bunch of small piecemeal FP libraries coming out. Hopefully they'll have the same kind of performance and elegance that well, you expect from the same kind of elegance you already expect from Scala Z, but added in the elegance you expect from Spire, and the performance, right? That's going to be. I'm super excited by these libraries. I can't wait to actually be able to pull them in on stable 1.0s and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's already some really interesting stuff that Cats is doing in that department. Like, Miles has an implementation of derived type classes, where it's a little bit like you can do in Haskell, where you just like you write an algebra and then you say like deriving functor or deriving show or something like that, and it just magically happens, right?
Yeah.
Miles has that working with shapeless and Cats, where you can just like derive functor for a sealed trait or whatever, and it just implements those type classes for you implicitly, and you just have them.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah,
that is pretty cool.
It's really, really cool. Through the strong power of parametricity.
That's yet another topic. Can we throw in?
I want to lob in something as well. You go,
Sure.
and just don't let me forget that I want to lob something in too, please.
Oh, the ones I'm gonna lob in were the ones from chat before we forget, because they're starting to scroll off the screen.
Yep.
Okay, so first off, we have. I'm gonna look up the name here. Okay, Raul Martinez. I probably said it wrong. Anyway, says fresh off the oven is scalaexercises.47deg.com.
I actually already had this in the news docket, so
nice.
Raoul, pleased to know that I did paste it in. But that's cool. We're talking about it now, so go ahead.
Sweet. So it looks like this is a way to like run a whole bunch of Scala exercises.
I can give a little bit of background on this one.
Go for it, man.
It must be about 4 or 5 years ago now. I was at CodeMash, and I did these things called the Ruby Koans, which is just like a set of small lessons in how to learn Ruby, and they're all executable, and you get tests to pass. And that evening, I went back and had some single malt scotch with a bunch of the functional guys from various communities, and we all decided to start this thing called the Functional Koans, which sort of got going, and I did a bunch of them and then sort of got sidetracked, and then somebody else took them over and ran with them, and that's basically what this is. It's these small lessons, it's these tests that you run. You have to fill in the correct answers and kind of understand them before you move on to the next one, and they took that and ported it into the web. And I think it might be a very nice way for somebody to try Scala for the first time without getting too involved. It's still a fair amount of effort to get like everything up and running and tuned on your machine the first time. So this just lets you go to a website and see if you like the syntax, the way it looks, and whether you get the idea of it, that sort of thing. And it gets you that initial out-of-the-box experience to let you know whether you want to know more about it or not.
So it looks like it's just really well done, the web port. It looks like they did a really
very slick
job. Very slick, yeah. So if you're trying to learn Scala, you're trying to get into it, that is a great place to go. So that's one of the ones from him. The second thing to mention is the Scala on Android. So there's this open source project from 47 Degrees called Translate Bubble Android, which shows how Scala on Android, I'm quoting, how Scala on Android is not only possible, but you can do pretty cool stuff with it.
Yay!
Great lib for Scala on Android, Macroid. Have you guys seen Macroid? Because I did notice that. I don't think I threw it on the list at all.
No.
So it's like a GUI DSL. I think it uses macros, which is why it's called Macroid, but I could be wrong.
That seems like a pretty safe bet, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Or it only runs on Macs is the other option. It's one of those two, probably.
It's meant to be like take Android and make it look and feel like Scala, at least more so than it does today. So one of the things, obviously, with UIs is they're like super mutable, effectful, that kind of thing. This like has like the ability to sequence actions and effectfully macro, and I don't know. It tries to make things look more like Scala. I think it has future support.
Cool.
So if you're using Scala on Android, I'd say take a look at it, because you're going to end up with things that look more structural than you would if you actually write straight up the Java code in Scala.
Oh yeah. Hopefully, I haven't looked at it at all yet, but hopefully one of my big, this is a particular interest of mine. So it's early days yet, but I've actually been chatting back and forth a couple of times with these guys, and I said, would they be interested in coming and talking on the Scalawags? Because I'm interested, speaking personally, about getting Android and Scala working together. I've tried a couple of times, and it sort of works, but it's not a wonderful experience. So every so often I sort of tune back in and see what the state of the art is and if it's improved. And it sounds like it has to a point where it's really usable now. So
yeah, I think
I'm interested in that.
I really want to see. Basically, I would love to spend some time, fixing up SBT for Android. The problem is, in my opinion, here's what I'm waiting for personally, because that would be kind of a personal pet thing I want to do. Is Android going to move to Java 7 and 8?
I think eventually. I don't know what sort of time frame. I mean, lambdas would obviously be a nicer way to do event handling in the GUI. But one of the things, and the point I was actually going to that I deflected myself from, is one of the things I've never liked about Android is all the resources are just basically ints. You create this XML with all the layout and everything like that, and then your button is an int, and your text view over here is an int, and there's no typing at all. You just go and look these things up, and you say, oh, by the way, this is a button, and cast it.
Look!
Everybody complained so much when SBT did, or when SWT did this, and then they're like, "No, this isn't Java the way." And then it's now, "Oh, Android is the best thing ever. Ints everywhere."
I know it's horrible. You really want those types back. So
I wrote Win32 applications back in the day. I remember how awesome integer resources are. That's how it's done. I mean, we were taught this way. That's the way. You can't do GUI programming without integer resources.
It's true.
Yeah, and I think actually the I don't know if you guys have done like the GPU programming, but the way you register like template resources or scripts and things, it's all integers. Everything.
Yeah, so, it's just the old school, man. The old school way.
It's the protocol.
An int should be enough for anybody.
When you're going from CPU land into GPU land, the only thing you can talk is int. Don't put that in a higher level API. No, don't do it. Keep it int. Even if you could have a type that erases to int, don't do it.
Just int. Yeah.
Just int. Okay. Otherwise, it won't be fast enough.
Anyway. Good old ints. What would we do without them?
I really hope there was something before Win32 that was int resource based that we could blame all of our problems on. But if not, we can just blame Win32. I think that's good enough.
So, did we have anything else up from the news, or can I lob in my grenade?
Go ahead and lob it in, and then we'll get back on track with the news.
All right, yeah, sounds good. So it's a quick plug for my good friend Miles Sabin, who is going to be doing. And I kind of remembered to mention this because we were talking about Shapeless and Shapeless working with NonCats and everything. He's doing a free, after Scala Days, he's doing a free seminar kind of thing, or a free course for a day on Shapeless in San Francisco. And as far as I know, I'm pretty sure you can still apply for it. It's free, but it's limited space, so he's doing a lottery thing. So you have to go search for it, or we'll find the link and stick it in the show notes. But you can register for it, and then you may get selected to go and do it. I wanted to go and do it, but I have to do my training. So I'll be actually doing the other training at the same time. Otherwise, I would have been there, or at least I would have applied for the place, because I think that would be really, really cool to see what the latest stuff is in Shapeless.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Awesome. All right.
So should we mention the last thing here is the JIRA to GitHub issues move?
Yeah, I think that there was a nice discussion on, Scalawags channel amazingly had some Scala-related material on it over the past couple of days. It was
there can't be anything useful on our channel.
It really was. It was quite exciting to see that happen. But normally we're just talking about crap on there, so it was good to see that. But yeah, since about a month after I sort of got involved, or even a couple of weeks after I got involved in sort of type safe advocate work, the one thing I kept hearing was that nobody likes JIRA. Everybody wants to get to GitHub issues, and I have had numerous conversations inside the company, lots and lots of back and forth. And the last place we left it about 2-3 weeks ago, because it's a conversation that Adrian and we sit, like when I go into the office, we literally sit opposite one another, and we sort of spar back and forth on how it might work and that sort of thing. And we both sort of took away, well, let's go and see what other people are doing. Well, about a week ago, Adrian just sort of said, we're doing this. And I'm like, that's awesome. I had no idea it was coming, much like everybody else didn't, other than we've chatted back and forth. But it sounds like, one of the things I said was, I almost flippantly, I'm like, you could just declare, like, email bankruptcy, but for JIRA. And, basically, the problem's too hard. There's, I don't know, 3,000 odd issues or whatever that are open. No one knows what state is. They all cross-reference one another. And what you can do is sort of freeze that, start using GitHub issues, and if it's important enough, and that's the idea with email bankruptcy, is you let everybody know you're doing it. It's an extreme case. I've only done it once ever, but it's when your inbox just gets insane, and you're like, you send out to everyone you think might have sent you something important. You're like, I've just declared inbox bankruptcy. If you're waiting for something from me, please email it again. And it sort of sorts out the wheat from the chaff, and only gets the things that people really care about. So I think that's sort of where it's going, but it's been pretty controversial. Got a good discussion going.
Yeah, there's even some controversial discussions on the Scalawags channel. So keep it cool, guys.
Oh yeah,
Cool.
Let's remember what we're talking about here is issue tracking for a software project. This is not like nuclear armaments or something. It's not that serious.
Well, we say that, but I think it's very easy to go too far in that direction of flippancy with respect to our process, right? So I'm one of those weirdos who cares a ton about, like, what is the experience like to use my build system? What is the experience like to use my CI, my version control system? What is our branching policy? How does all of that work? How do my issues work? And how are they linked together? Like, I care a ton about that because, you know what? I do it 20 or 30 times a day. I'm going to be touching the issue tracking system to do something important. And, implicitly, I might be touching it, 70 or 80 times a day, depending on that. If I can get, like, a 15-second increase to every single one of those interactions, that adds up a ton over the course of a week, or a month, or a year.
The other thing about the issue database is you have lots of blood, sweat, and tears from people in there.
Yes.
You're not just you're declaring bankruptcy, but it's not your bankruptcy. It's like it's a collective.
It's other people's bankruptcy.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of investment other people have made into trying to reproduce these issues or triage them. Like, it's both sides of that coin. That's why the JIRA move has been so heated. When we moved from Track to JIRA, I think, and that was fun.
Well, and I've been dying to hear your opinions on this. So my take on it is, I hear it's the number one thing I hear from potential contributors is they don't like JIRA, and the number one request is to get it onto GitHub. Now, speaking personally, I don't mind JIRA so much. I don't. There's no bug tracking system that I actually like. They're like build tools to me. But I'm not a hater, and I'm like, I can use it.
Well, so here's the thing about JIRA. The biggest problem I have is just it's slow. Like, if it was more responsive,
it's complicated, it's inconsistent, it doesn't work on mobile devices. Its markup language is insane. It's very difficult to link it to version control systems.
Well, hold on. So JIRA, let's say 5 years ago, state of the art. Like, that's the best bug tracking system you can get. It was super feature rich and all that. When mobile hit, and like big push to mobile, big push on like the reactive, like, or by that I mean reactive UIs, meaning responsive UIs, that movement, which is a sub movement in the giant reactive hype. The responsive UI movement, like JIRA didn't adapt. They didn't get to simple GET requests leading to finding issues. It's still the old post-session heavy, right? They didn't like make a JIRA 2.0 or whatever.
Yeah.
I guess they're already 2.0. I don't know. They didn't make a new version with all these new design principles. It's still the same product. So that's why a lot of people are starting to hate it, because the new systems aren't as feature-rich. They're super nice to actually use what they have. GitHub Issues, I will say, is not a good issue tracking system. It's freaking annoying to use. But
it's incredibly crude.
It's very crude.
Well, it's very. But it's very feature light, I think, is the main one that that's the main concern I have, is you've got labels, and as far as I can tell, that's about it.
Well, it's feature light in the sense that a stone hatchet is feature light. Like, it will get the job done if what you want to do is club a mastodon to death, but it's not necessarily.
So for SBT, like there are some issues that we could just declare bankruptcy on and say, sorry, like that. Yes, that sucks. If we were going to fix it, we should have fixed it before we even wrote the software. Yes, it's an issue. It's just known, that sort of thing. But our issue database is up to, I don't know, like 1,000 or something. The Scala one is much bigger, much more subtle issues. Tracking these things, figuring out how they're related, is a pain in the butt. With GitHub Issues, there's many times where I just want to be like, where it's a pain in the butt to find a related issue. With JIRA, it's not necessarily a whole bunch better, but it's slightly better. But just finding related issues and grouping them together, closing as duplicate, you even have to create a label to say this is a duplicate.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm closing it. Like, you have to do all of that work yourself to kind of set up what your bug tracking system is going to be like. Once it's done, it's not terrible, but if what you need from issue tracking is search and then automatically closing on pull request, that's cool, right? That works. And that's essentially what we've turned SBT into. We started trying to make more use of the community labels, but the thing you got to remember with any of these open source projects is there is some person who never gets thanked that does the issue triage, that just, like, they live in the bug tracking database. In teams I've been on where we use JIRA, usually there is one person who is sacrificed on the Atlassian altar who all they do is maintain the JIRA bug database and try to make sure that issues are triaged, that all the labels are correct, and they lose between 25 to 75% productivity depending on the size of the project you're working on, just trying to keep JIRA sane. Right? So somebody has to do that. You still have to do that with GitHub Issues, but it gives you this illusion that you can ignore it. And then you do.
It's more subtle than that, Josh, right? So it does give you the illusion that you can ignore it, and then people do. But it's also, there's less to do because there's less you can do, right?
Well, that's true.
You keep things sane. But, with JIRA, the definition of keeping things sane means making sure it's in the right place in the workflow and making sure things are linked together and making sure things are assigned to the appropriate buckets. Like all of that, and if you're using Greenhopper, it's an entirely different world. Like, all of that is very complicated, and that is what keeping things sane in JIRA means. Keeping things sane in GitHub Issues means making sure the labels are right and making sure that maybe you have the right wording convention on how you've linked issues together and making sure this thing is closed and this thing is not closed. Like that's okay. So that's work, right? That work hasn't gone away, and it is conceptually the same work, but there's a lot less to do. And that has pluses and minuses, right? Because you have less power that you can get out of it, right? You have to do things by convention, and you have to do things in the search box and with labels and things. But at the same time, there's just a lot less tedium associated with maintenance because there's less you can do.
Yeah. So what do you? I haven't really gauged what you think of this move, Daniel. This idea. It sounds like you're not a fan of JIRA. You're not particularly a fan of GitHub Issues. But yeah. I'm just interested. One of the things is, do you think this is a positive move or not?
I have a lot of conflicting opinions on this. So number one, to say I'm not
that's a good answer.
Would be an understatement. JIRA is by far the most powerful tool out there. There is nothing that compares to it in what it can do, except maybe Bugzilla with a lot of crazy custom stuff. But Oh my gosh, I hate JIRA so much. I lose so much time to it every single day. Okay, all right. I'm sorry for anyone who works at Atlassian. I know it's not your fault. I know what your code base looks like, but God, I hate your tool. Okay, so JIRA is annoying, but GitHub issues, I'm really concerned that it doesn't have the kind of flexibility that the Scala project needs to be able to make some sense of its issue, like all of the issues that are out there and all of the issue linking, like Josh was referencing. JIRA does that. Let's not say it does it well, but it does it, and very few other projects do it. GitHub Issues certainly doesn't do it in any sort of formalized sense. So I'm really concerned about that. Scala has a lot of bugs associated with it. I'm concerned about losing all of the work that's gone into the issue database. I mean, I've been around long enough to remember the migration from Track to JIRA, and there was a lot of custom scripting and a lot of crazy stuff that happened to try to make that as seamless as possible, and it still sucked. Yeah. We're talking about deliberately making this transition suck more.
So it's important to remember that you are going to have. I mean, I think the idea is to freeze the old one, so it's still there for reference. Nothing will be lost. It's just going to get.
The old Track database is still there for reference if you'd like.
Yeah,
to see it.
But no one uses it.
The old Track database is there for reference. Yeah.
Now, one thing I'm going to throw out there is I think GitHub Issues is perfectly fine for smaller projects because you can get what you need to do in there. Which, if you have a lot of small open source projects, GitHub Issues is pretty darn good at getting the job done for very little fuss. Like, you get it for free.
Yeah.
For the Scala modules, like Scala XML, it might be enough for Scala XML to use GitHub just fine. Move all those issues into there, right? Paul is reminding us that
I know.
when we converted, it changed all occurrences of dollar signs.
Oh,
That was a wonderful bug. That was wonderful.
That's awesome. That's increased your profit by an order of magnitude right there.
Yes. Yeah. Especially with the way that Scala encodes names. Yeah. So you were saying, Josh.
Basically, what I'm saying is, essentially, if you're trading complexity of tool for the complexity of the piece of the project that the bug gets reported on, that's essentially, I think, the trade they're trying to make, where you start fragmenting out things more and more and more, and then you don't, you're forcing the user to actually go to the correct module to report a bug. So we have this issue in SBT already, where someone opens an issue on SBT for anything that has the word SBT in it. Even if it's a plugin, right? They'll open the issue on SBT and say, sorry, this is the wrong project, you have to put this over here, right? Whereas, right now, the JIRA has all of that together, and you're trying to maintain this cohesive state, and we're just saying, screw it, we're never going to look at it like that anymore. We're going to put this is pigeonholed, this is pigeonholed, this is pigeonholed. So you might be able to get away with a less sophisticated tool if you effectively do that, but you are putting the work on humans now.
Yes. To get it right, and then to copy things over. Like, you can't move tickets between projects in GitHub.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to manually do stuff. So you're losing all the sophistication of a powerful bug tracking tool, with the ideal that. So here's the thing that I think you want to fix. You want the people the place where people naturally go to do something, and the thing they naturally try to do is what you want to let them do. Okay. So if I naturally go to GitHub Issues to report issues, you want to let them do that, because that will give you the best chance of them giving it to you the way you want. The way they naturally try to write issues, if you keep your process as close to that as possible, you'll get better input. That's option number one, is try to make it as natural to how they do things already. The option number two is you make it as unnatural as possible, so they have to relearn all their behavior to give you an issue so that you get it the way you want it. You basically have to do one of those two. If you go in between, you're going to get issues that you don't like at all.
Yeah.
So you either make what they're going to do by default the right way to go, or you make it so foreign they have to relearn everything. And this is a lesson in API design.
Yeah.
It is a lesson in API design.
Let's talk about the SBT build syntax at some point.
So,
anyway,
circling back around to the Scala issues, I'm really concerned about abandoning the old ones, but at the same time, there's a ton of stuff in there that's effectively abandoned anyway. I mean, ever since Adrian announced this, Paul Phillips has just been like on a tear, pulling out like these really old issues that are sometimes actually somewhat significant. Like people run into this stuff and it confuses them, and it's been around for like 7 years and it's still in there, and it was reported a long time ago, and this is just sort of getting abandoned in JIRA. Those issues are already effectively abandoned. Like no one wants to say it, but they're not going to get fixed. I'm sorry, they're there. They should be fixed. There's no excuse for this, but they're not going to get fixed.
Well, and there's at least a chance, and I'm trying not to just be the complete rah-rah here, but if there's a lot of noise in the database right now. If it's an important bug like that, then somebody, you would hope, we're crowdsourcing. It's a crowdsourcing thing. Get enough people to get in there, force them to do the work, and hopefully it'll get done. And if those bugs are important enough, they'll get brought back across. Maybe they'll become more obvious and more relevant again, and actually get some attention, as opposed to being buried under this pile of junk mail that's built up over the top of it. So
yeah, it's the email bankruptcy thing, like you were saying. I mean,
yeah,
it's declaring issue bankruptcy. It's like, okay, we're just admitting that all of this stuff that's in here that we all agree is important. We're just admitting that we're never going to get to it.
That's
if
how
you really
I treat
care
taxes,
about it,
actually. You just, you got a pile of things you have to declare. This just.
Yeah, it's sad that this is the state that we're in, but it is the state that we're in, and it's time that we owned it. It's like this stuff. It's important. If it's really important to you that the type system is unsound in like these 4 cases, file another issue about it, and at least this way you get to file an issue about it in a UI that's pleasant to use, that's fast, that's responsive, that's linked with GitHub.
Well, and Paul, I've been watching Paul's comments as we're talking about this. So he disputes that there's a lot of noise. It's a quick flippant quip that I can throw out there. But when I went to the community contribution page the first time, I think the top 10 bugs were things like an obscure flag in JRocket doesn't work. There's something wrong with the Emacs major mode, and it was this list of bugs that no one gives a crap about. And you arrived on the community bugs page, looked at this and went, they don't want me to work on anything. This is busy work. So there is noise in there, definitely. I don't know how much there is. The alternative to crowdsourcing this is you get some poor sap who draws the short straw, who has to go and do all this work, and probably, gets to the end of the year and just like goes and starts a yak farm or something because they're so burned out on the whole thing.
Yeah, so. I want to say, so the question is, what is noise? And the definition of noise, I think a bug that nobody wants to fix is possibly a good definition of noise. Like, if there's no possible way that anyone will spend the time to fix it, then you might as well just have, instead of having it in the bug tracker where you assume it will get fixed, make a known issue page. Like, these will never get fixed. These are known problems we have. Just, yes, we don't. Emacs mode on JRocket on Windows doesn't work. Sorry, right? Like, just put it there. Might be a better way to go. I'm of the opinion now there are certain obscure like Windows terminal related issues in SPT. There's a guy who seems to always run into these, but he's also a really good contributor. So when it comes to that, we actually work with him and he helps us define how to fix the bug. That's cool. That's a bug that is obscure, yet someone cares enough about not only to report but to help diagnose and fix. When it's an obscure bug that someone issues a report on and you never hear back from them and it just disappears into the ether, there's a point in time where you just have to declare anyway, it's done. But there's still a lot of.
Let the record show that Paul disagrees with pretty much everything we're saying. I'm watching the stuff. I swear. So he's taken the mickey about JRocket on Emacs, but I'm like, those were the top bugs on the community issues page when I first looked at it, and they hadn't changed in 3 years.
Anyway, so Paul, the unsoundness bugs that you're mentioning, I do think should come across and should be things that we look at. Like we should be very aware of where we're unsound. And if it's not documented in the bug base, it needs to be documented as a known limitation in the type system somewhere. Like that,
Yeah,
those are important.
I think it would actually be a really good idea. Like, to just establish a practice, right? So if there's an unsoundness bug that is found in the Scala type system that just generates these sorts of issues that you see in the bug tracker, okay, it needs to be filed in a bug. It needs to be filed in the current bug tracker system. And if it's not fixed or scheduled to be fixed within 6 months, say, pick a time period, then it goes on a known issues list, and that just has to be like an automatic thing. We can't have these things where there's an unsoundness issue that's been around for 6 years that nobody knows about because it's like buried in JIRA somewhere.
Well, that's actually the case now.
I know that's the case now.
Sometime you should go through JIRA and just search for unsound, because it's pretty interesting. Like those cases are really enlightening. If you have a chance.
And it's important to know about them.
The link. We'll put the link in the show notes if you want to look for soundness bugs.
Yeah. Well, my point is that if there's an unsoundness bug, like unsoundness bugs are really important, right? If there's an unsoundness that is sticking around for that long as a known issue, it needs to be put in some majorly prominent page, like known unsoundness issues linked from scalalang.org or something that serious.
When you click on download, you have to click and accept. Do you accept these unsoundness issues in the type system? Yes or no?
It doesn't quite have to be that prominent, but it has to be someplace where people can find it that's not a JIRA search. Yeah, or a GitHub issues search, right? It has to be something a little bit more obvious than that, like a wall of shame, because there's a dual purpose here, right? One is communication, and the other is disincentivizing leaving it alone for 6 months. We just can't let people ignore it.
Yeah. Or it could be part of the language design. Actually, is the unsoundness bug. For example, there was a language that I know where every collection was just automatically covariant.
Oh my gosh!
Which is a huge soundness bug.
So I had a conversation with Adrian a couple of years ago where we were talking about the Turing completeness of Scala's type system. And this, by the way, was before Miles found some of the implicit resolution machinery that he has now, which opens up a second avenue of Turing completeness, right? So for those of you who don't know, Scala's type system is Turing complete in 2 different ways that we know of. It might be Turing complete in other ways, but there's 2 different mechanisms we can use to get a general Turing machine. The first of these mechanisms is the so-called dependent type of a dependent type trick, where you can just get a path-dependent type and then keep getting dependent types of that type, and that's how you can sort of generate recursion via the language's own open recursion mechanism. Anyway, Adrian actually thinks that this is a bug in the type system that also generates unsoundness, but it's sort of never been fixed, right? It's been known since 2.7. He's pretty sure it's a bug, but it's just sort of in there by fiat. And it's another one of those things that's been around forever that most people are pretty sure is a bad idea, but it's just there, and it probably generates issues.
And someone's done something cool with it by now, so.
Well, there's plenty of really cool stuff that's been done with it, but it's probably not the best idea. I mean, the stuff the way that Shapeless works and the implicit machinery that Shapeless uses to do its witchcraft is a lot easier to reason about, and it's a lot easier to work with in the type system, and it's generally will generate better errors for you when you get something wrong. Doing the dependent type of a dependent type trick will occasionally get the compiler to just go into an infinite loop, and not even Stack Overflow, just infinitely loop, and you kind of have to figure out what's going on with thread dumps.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
I'm well, anyway, so that's cool.
I don't remember what I was connecting that to, but that was a tangent.
I think we should wrap up a little bit. There are probably more news items to cover. There's lots of cool things going on in Scala. But to recap, okay, there's lots of good conferences coming up. Scala and Android, take a look at it again. Get involved with the JIRA GitHub issue conversion chat. If you want to find out all the negatives, I'm sure Paul will elucidate them on our channel right now. And
he's in strong disagreement with us all at the moment.
You know, this is how you make better decisions, is to actually disagree and figure out what the best decision is. So
absolutely.
I'm glad that we're having the discussion. I think that, honestly, my opinion on this is there's no right decision. Like, staying on JIRA
I'm afraid that might be the case.
Bad. Going to GitHub is going to be bad. It's a matter of what trade-offs do you want to make. It's one of those no-win situations. Anyway, okay. Also, check out NonCats and Non-Algebra and all of the family of related, hopefully super elegant, super efficient, and super tiny libraries around functional programming, which, again, if there's anything that I can push on off of that news item, is making small cohesive libraries is going to be something I would really like to see have happen more and more and more. And yeah, check out Gitter.im. There's lots of discussion going on there. It's pretty cool. Feel free to get involved in new projects, contribute. There's Dick redid the Scala contribute page. Lots of good things going on.
It's still being redone. There's some bits that will be going in there soon to do with tooling, because tooling has never been much of a focus, like SBT and Scala IDE and stuff like that.
What?
No, I mean in terms of funneling community resources into it is what I mean by that. So that's that, and there's a bunch of stuff there that could really use some help, like poor old Scalariform, which I think a lot of people use, and no one really gives it love to anymore. So
there are two news items we should mention around this, by the way. So this is what I was not injecting, but I'm going to just highlight them real quick, and we won't talk about them. But we can talk about them in the next episode. One is SBT Server had its first release that Activator is based on, and we're already working with some of the IntelliJ guys and the Enzyme guys and one of the Scala IDE contributors to get integration in with there. So some seamless integration. Related to Scalariform and stuff, I don't know if you saw Martin's proposal to have the Scala AST be written out to bytecode.
Yeah.
The bare minimum awesome thing that happens from this is there might be finally a spec'd AST. This is exactly what's in it, and there needs to be something which generates the full AST in a regular fashion that tools like Scalariform can use. That's at least my hope of what comes out of this. Like, we need that having a stable and useful AST API is the most important thing to get Scalariform stable, to get lots of these third-tier tools working. Anyway.
I'm chuckling because I keep seeing I have the pop-ups coming up of the conversation, and they're currently taking the piss out of your pronunciation of JIRA or JIRA.
JIRA. Look. It's yeah. Anyway.
You also pronounce it Atlassian. I don't even know what that is.
By the way, do you know where JIRA comes from? The name?
No.
Oh, so the idea was originally, the earliest one was Bugzilla, which was sort of named after Godzilla. The idea being it was Bugzilla, and they named JIRA because the way you would say in the Japanese movies, Godzilla is Gojira.
Oh.
And so it was named after Gojira. At least that's the story I heard. It could be that the Atlassian guys came up with that whilst drinking one evening and just decided they could see if it would catch on as a story. But that's what they told me anyway. So, yeah, Gojira.
That's actually pretty fitting, though, that it's named after Godzilla.
Yeah. So,
Anyway.
Anything else in the newsy bits? Because we spent, as predicted, ages on that.
Yeah, well, so try out the new Activator release if you haven't. They redid the UI. It's pretty awesome. It works on multi-project SBT builds now. It's using SBT Server, and we also recently released the SBT serialization module, which is based on Pickling. It has our own JSON format, which is meant to be a thing which you can create a protocol that can evolve on top of. So you can define a protocol on top of it, and then maintain that protocol for all time. So it's mostly around maintaining a protocol, which is about as hard as maintaining binary compatibility. Possibly worse. We'll see. Anyway, so yeah, those are my SBT related announcements of things I actively did, and I think Akka Streams had another milestone, which is exciting.
Yeah, they're getting really close to a 1.0 now, I think. So
yeah,
we've gone from really no good solutions to large data streaming to having like several different good options now, which is very exciting. So
yeah, well, we with Akka Streams, I have a project that I made called Streamers, where I can take the webcam and render it into the console. That was my 1.0 celebration.
Yeah, you sent me the dancing bird and the Rick Astley video.
Oh yeah, I actually have it so it can rickroll you, but it doesn't work on OS X. So.
Oh well, clearly it's useless then.
Try Macroid on it. That might get it working.
Anyway, yeah. So the key here is javax.sound is terrible because you can rickroll someone just without audio on OS X. So yeah. Anyway, all right. I think that's been a pretty good episode.
I have a parting story. I've been sitting on it because it has nothing to do with Scala, but it is a cute story. So I noticed your shirt, Josh, which is much respect for the Link shirt. When I moved to California, I had an old Nintendo 64 that I left with the kids of a friend of mine, and it had a bunch of those games on it, including I think Ocarina of Time and a couple of other ones. And they love this game, and they thought that I was this kind of hero for giving them this games console. And when I went back there to visit, they wanted to show me, but they got stuck. They'd got stuck in a bit of it, and it'd been so long since I played it. It must have been 4 or 5 years, and I'm like, I can't remember. I'm gonna have to look it up on my phone. Anyway, what was funny about this was I looked up the answer on the phone and told them, and then they were like, I was talking to them later on, and I don't know, talking about something or other, and they said, "Did your phone tell you that?" And they had it in their mind that my phone was like this magical oracle box that told me everything I could possibly need to know. And I was like, wow, that's what kids look at this thing as. He pulls out a device and asks a question and gets the answer. They're like, it's like this magic box that you ask things and it tells you the answer. So I thought it was pretty funny. It just reminded me, seeing the Link shirt, that they did that.
That's awesome. When I was a kid, I would have given anything to have a magical box to ask. Questions of. Yeah.
Yeah. I got all nostalgic the other day thinking about the old speech synthesizer that I had on the Spectrum, my first computer, and how now I actually talk. My phone is sitting next to me, and I can say, the keyword, which I won't say because it'll start recording stuff, and leave reminders for myself while I'm working on stuff, which is really nice. And I'm like, wow, we've come a long way. We really have.
Wait, is it eSound is the one that like
eSpeak, I think it was.
eSpeak. Yeah.
It sounds pretty awful.
Hold on. Let's see if we can get it working here.
What you should do, type in "Greetings, Professor Falcon. Shall we play a game?"
Hold on. Can you hear this?
Hello, Dick.
Yeah, try "Greetings, Professor Falcon. Shall we play a game?"
Greetings, Professor Falcon. Shall we play a game?
Outstanding. Okay, I think that's a great way to finish the episode. Let's play global thermonuclear warfare.
Goodbye, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
You should ask it how it pronounces JIRA.
You want me? I'll type it in. Hold on. I'm slow. I got to get back to that window because
JIRA.
See? It pronounces it correctly.
So everyone except Josh, basically.
Oh, it said JIRA now, didn't it?
What, you misspelled it.
Oh, and if you want it to say Scala, you have to say Scahla. Otherwise, it says Scala. It
Incidentally, Josh, you may be interested to know that if I use the Mac speech, like the say command on Mac, it says JIRA. So you agree with Mac, and that's basically it.
Oh no! Oh man, I don't even know
Right,
what to say.
I believe the returns are diminishing for people who are still watching at this point, so it's probably time to say goodbye.
Yes.
Goodbye, everyone.